Vipraha, Brahmana, Vimanaha, aggrieved, Paritatyata, lamented, Aho, alas, Adharma, impiety, Sumahan, very great, Aja, today, me, on me, Samupastitaha, has come. Translation. Upon hearing Diti's request, Kashyapa Muni was very much aggrieved. Alas, he lamented, now I face the danger of the impious act of killing Indra. Purport. Although Kashyapa Muni was eager to fulfill the desire of his wife Diti, when he heard that she wanted a son to kill Indra, his jubilation was immediately reduced to nothing because he was averse to the idea. Text 39. Aho atendriya ramo yoshin maya maya grihita teta kripana patishe narake dhruvam. Kashyapa Muni thought, alas, I have now become too attached to material enjoyment. Taking advantage of this, my mind has been attracted by the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a woman, my wife. Therefore, I am surely a wretched person who will glide down toward hell. Text 40. To koti kramo nuvatanja svabhavam ihayoshita linmam bhata buddham svarte yat aham tvaditendriya. This woman, my wife, has adopted a means that follows her nature, and therefore she is not to be blamed. But I am a man, therefore all condemnation upon me. I am not at all conversant with what is good for me, since I could not control my senses. Purport. The natural instinct of a woman is to enjoy the material world. She induces her husband to enjoy this world by satisfying his tongue, belly, and genitals, which are called jiva, udara, and upasta. A woman is expert in cooking palatable dishes so that she can easily satisfy her husband in eating. When one eats nicely, his belly is satisfied, and as soon as the belly is satisfied, the genitals become strong. Especially when a man is accustomed to eating meat and drinking wine and similar passionate things, he certainly becomes sexually inclined. It should be understood that sexual inclinations are meant not for spiritual progress, but for gliding down to hell. Thus Kashyapa Muni considered his situation and lamented. In other words, to be a householder is very risky unless one is trained, and the wife is a follower of her husband. A husband should be trained at the very beginning of life. Kaumara Achiret Pragyo Dharman Bhagavatan Iha, from Srimad Bhagavatam 761. During the time of brahmacharya, or student life, the brahmacharya should be taught to be expert in Bhagavad Dharma, devotional service. Then when he marries, if his wife is faithful to her husband and follows him in such life, the relationship between husband and wife is very desirable. However, relationship between husband and wife without spiritual consciousness, but strictly for sense gratification, is not at all good. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.2.3 that especially in this age, Kali Yuga, Dampati Biruchiya Hetu, the relationship between husband and wife will be based on sexual power. Therefore, household life in this Kali Yuga is extremely dangerous unless both the wife and husband take to Krishna consciousness. Take the last verse again. Koti kramo nuvatancha svabhavam ihayoshitaha dinmam bhata buddham svarte yat aham svaditendriyaha. This woman, my wife, has adopted a means that follows her nature, and therefore she is not to be blamed. But I am a man, therefore all condemnation upon me. I am not at all conversant with what is good for me, since I could not control my senses. Om Magyaram Chamranda Shakinandana Shakya Chaksun Yatam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. kam karoti vachalam hangum langaiti krim yat kripa tarahang bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namni Namaste Saraswati Deepam Gaura Prachayini Vishisha Shrunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatayini Manja Kalavatarubhyascha Kripasunyaeva Cha Patitanam Neyo Vaishnaveyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So here we continue. More discussions about the dangers of materialistic life, which is centered around sexual attraction and its properties. He writes here in the purport: sexual attraction is not meant for it's meant for gliding down to hell. How does it want to say? They're not meant for spiritual progress, but for gliding down to hell. This is actually it's a gateway to hell, sexual attraction. No wonder that the Vedic process has very, very strong regulations on sexual life, because this is what is binding us in this material world, and it has to be addressed in a very the thing is that conditioned souls actually are addicted, so they generally cannot give it up, but they still have to get free of it. So then there's a Vedic process how to free oneself from attachment to sex life, or how to live in such a way that it doesn't cause terrible degradation, sex life. And there's a whole Vedic process for that. And actually, if one doesn't follow that, then practically hellish life is guaranteed. It is guaranteed. And one to say there is no alternative. We might think that it is too strict. First of all, being trained as a brahmachari, and then having a wife and being responsible for the wife, and only having sex once a month for the sake of getting children, and then after that being very responsible, taking care of the children, working honestly and responsibly, and it simply it doesn't satisfy my desires. But that's anything other than that actually will cause hell. It will cause hell. It might we might think that it will not cause hell for me, but it will cause hell for everyone. And hell doesn't mean necessarily that after this life one will go to a hellish planet where there will be a woman of a metal, glowing, burning, glowing metal form of woman, and one will be forced to embrace that woman. It doesn't mean that. Well, it does mean that. That's also there. It's described as one of the hells described in the 5th canto, that if for those who are sexually inclined, too sexually inclined, that's the fate they'll have to face. That after death they'll be forced to embrace a middle form of the opposite sex, glowing middle form, and you just have to embrace, be burned like that. So, but really, hell also starts already here, and anyone who's tried going through a situation where with a conjugal relationship not based on regulated principles, not based on on dharma, and not based on Krishna consciousness will actually know it becomes hell. Actually becomes hell. It becomes like wife and husband, for example, end up fighting like cats and dogs, and it is actually probably rather burn in hell than having to go through that. But that's what many go through. Even devotees go through that. Many devotees go through that situation, and they experience this is worse than anything practically. And generally it happens because one or both are not following the principles. It's especially because sometimes there is a misunderstanding that when I get married, then I have a free license to have sex, and I have a free license to associate with women. And it's completely false. That's not actually getting married means that one is as much brahmachari as one has always been, and even in one sense, practically the demand is one has to be more. Otherwise, it will be a hellish life. And the thing is that happens that if the man is not able to control the senses, then the woman, she will not want to follow such a man. She will, as Prabhupada talks about the ideal situation, the man is trained probably like a brahmachari. He's completely Krishna conscious. He's fully engaged in devotional service, and then and she is trained to follow such a husband. And of course, there must be some attraction, some inclination to live in household life, but they follow the principles. And if they engage in any sexual relationship, it's strictly according to, as it's prescribed, as a proper Garbhadan samskara, there's a chanting of 16 rounds. They want a child. They want a child in good consciousness. This is and that's all described by Krishna as dharma virute bhutishu kamusmi bharatarshava. That this kind of sex life is actually non-different from Krishna, but actually any other kind of sex life is just causing troubles. The man cannot control his senses, and he will somehow or other rape the wife. Prabhupada calls it rape, and then the wife might give into it, or might even want it, or may not want it, or whatever. But some maybe she reluctantly agrees to that. Say, okay, you can rape me now, but also the price is that now you have to listen to me, because how can I follow you? You're not able to control the senses, and you can speak so many big words, but you're not able to practice it. So you will have to follow me now, and become my follower, my slave, or not slave, but you have to follow and listen to me, and it just creates a big mess. And it's true. How can a wife respect a man that they cannot control his senses? And men cannot control their senses. That's generally in 99 out of 100 cases. They cannot control their senses. So it is going to be a disaster. And therefore we see, and then also because we're not properly trained, we think that being married means you can break the marriage. Actually, that's not possible. It's not an option. Once you're married, it's not an option to break the marriage. Divorce is not an option. You might think it's an option. It is an option. Legally, it's an option. Prabhupada sanctioned it in some cases because some devotees was about to do it anyway. So they said, "Go ahead, just do it." And but it's actually it is dharmically speaking, it's not an option. And if we break the dharma, whether it's it's legally an option. It doesn't matter that we will suffer because of breaking Dharma. That's Dharma are the rules that we follow them, and then we will actually elevate ourselves. We will not degrade. We will ultimately, there will be the happiness coming from following proper Dharma. But if we break it, we will definitely suffer somehow or another. It is unavoidable. It's just like the rules of Dharma compared in the Bhagavatam to the ring in the nose of a bull. So bulls have very, very sensitive noses. They're very big animals and big muscles, and but here they're so sensitive. And that's why you place a ring there, and then a rope, and then with the rope, just tuck a little here and there, and then the bull is so it pains so much with this ring. So and he could at any moment just like this, and he could tear the ring apart from his nose, but that's going to be very painful for him. So the rules of Dharma are like that. They are, actually they're controlling us like the ring in the bull of the nose. And if we move, in any other way except according to the rules of Dharma, it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful. So So Vedic practice. I mean, this is the ambition. We cannot, we cannot really be satisfied with the level of conjugal relationships which are in the material world, and that somehow other people are functioning, even in their marriages and sexual relationships, and somehow or other are functioning, and very often they're suffering. We know that. Therefore, also they are. There are so many divorces nowadays. In the previous ages, divorces were not there because people were more religious. They were probably not following the regulated principles, probably not. But they had still a greater sense of being God conscious and simply seeing this as this is the fate that God has put me in. This is God's what God wants me to do. So we will live together. And actually, as soon as God is in the center and both have sin, then it actually becomes somewhat functional, even though even in a millennial condition. And also, we had previously there was much more of a supportive social situation that even though husband and wife maybe they were not getting along too well, but then she had so many friends, and of course she had children, and she had given a whole village and a lot of family like that, and also he had many friends and colleagues and so on. So in that sense, they could get their needs for personal relationships satisfied in they had a big social circle that could satisfy their needs for personal relationships. That's a big problem nowadays, that is not really there, and this is also one reason why for these many divorces we see out even in the secular society, and also because it has become the idea that it's okay to separate at one point if it doesn't satisfy you. But anyhow, for devotees, the only way is really going to work and be progressive for us in our Krishna consciousness is simply if you follow the Vedic process as it's been outlined here by Srila Prabhupada. First of all, everyone is being trained as a brahmachari. That of course means all men, all boys are being trained as brahmachari, and women are being trained as brahmacharinis, which doesn't exist. But probably he created that. That's Prabhupada's creation. But basically, women are being trained also to, in one sense, to be brahmacharis, being chaste, Krishna conscious, and being taught to be good wives to a good husband. But a good husband is only someone who is actually a brahmachari. Otherwise he will not be a good husband. Otherwise he will exploit her for sense gratification. He will see her simply as a sexual machine, a machine to gratify his own senses, and that cannot be. Of course, who would like that? Woman, nobody would like to just be treated as a machine. No wonder the women will freak out if this is just how they are being treated. So one has to be trained like men has to be trained like brahmacharis and become first-class brahmacharis. That is, there's one cannot be a grihastha unless one is a first-class brahmachari. Someone would say, well, why should a first-class brahmachari get married in the first place? But that's not correct. There are two kinds of first-class brahmacharis. There are Naistiki brahmacharis, and then there are Upakrovana brahmacharis. And they both are first class. Both are, being nicely trained and being taught by the guru, and have very good service attitude, very good training, and so on. But one is just has a conditioned nature where he functions in family life and will need to be in family life in order to be really situated in his natural element. And then, but then once you get married, one should just go on living basically as a brahmachari. Although, it is different. That's one mistake. One is not a brahmachari. One is a grihastha brahmachari, and that is it is somewhat different from being a brahmachari. It's more complicated because women is added to the formula, and that immediately creates a very complex situation. Actually, if we had a world without women, it would be much nicer. We all agree on that, and because it would be so simple. We wouldn't need a lot of society and social arrangements, and it's men are actually very simple. Just a big room, and everyone can sleep there next to each other in their mats and the mattresses, and roll them up in the morning, and as long as there's one who's the boss and everyone just is happy following and serving like that, things men that they don't need any big arrangement. But when women enters, then it becomes very complicated. That also means that children will appear. It makes it even more complicated, and it's actually the whole social complications in Varnashram Dharma. They are there because they are women, and also because they're men who are attached to women, such as us, we attach to women. But if there were no women and if we had no attachment to women, it would be so simple, everything. So, but the point is that grihasthas don't live like. You have to be as Krishna conscious as a brahmachari. One, you have to be as sense controlled, and even more sense controlled than as a brahmachari, in order for it to work. And then you have to be a grihastha who is interacting with your wife and actually the greater society and so on. One has to become as it's explained in the 7th canto, you have to appear completely attached while internally being completely detached. That's actually the ideal. How many are that? That's it's described that one shouldn't exhibit artificial detachment in the Grihastha ashram, and one should appear, and one should act as someone who is very attached, but internally one should be detached. Bhakti Thakur was the ideal Grihastha. He was acting as he was actually a mega Grihastha with 13 children and big position in society and 2 wives, not at the same time. He had 1 wife, she died, and he got another wife, and like that. So, and from all we know, he was the perfect husband and the perfect father, and so on, and was not exhibiting any kind of artificial detachment. But we know within, he was completely detached. He was completely detached. He was saying, this is, I'm simply Krishna's servant. That's all. And this is the environment that Krishna has put me in, where I should render service. These are Krishna's children, and this is Krishna's wife. And I'm simply here to render service to Krishna by serving Krishna's wives and Krishna's children. This is how he was thinking. So he was completely ideal. He was, even though 13 children, he was a strict Grihastha brahmachari. And so, if one can practice like that, then it can be, Grihastha life is not a hindrance for spiritual life, but if it's if one will not practice like that, it will become a hindrance. It will become a problem. Then, of course, still, if one is attached like that, is not able to be completely sense-controlled, well, still, what can one do? One has to go through it, and then by sufficiently suffering, then one can maybe come to a point where one can build up the determination to actually become self-controlled. It's a matter of it's really a matter of determination. So of course, it's not our process is not repression. We have to engage positively in Krishna consciousness, in devotional service, and that will keep us fully engaged and give us a higher taste, so we can control our senses in relationship to the lower activities. Still, it takes determination. We are not sometimes sufficiently determined. Then some material nature will maybe being beaten by material nature. At one point, we come to the point. Actually, I want to be determined. Enough is enough, and I want to be fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And then, not to be, not be any more entangled and being beaten up in materialistic life due to my uncontrolled senses. The thing is, we have to be, it's nothing works if we do not control our senses. Whether we are as a brahmachari, it doesn't work if we cannot control our senses. As a grihastha, it doesn't work if we cannot control our senses. Even as